they had to make the coffee because it wasn't ready, and
I was like, no, it's okay.
We're doing our thing, and this is what we eventually hear gets our attention. Coffee.
Slams the mug on the bar.
This woman, she just bangs her hand on the bar twice. Coffee.
She looks like, she looked like she could have hand ground the bean.
Yeah.
That's your coffee right here.
Just with her eyes. Just,
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to back up in the conversation because I'm curious about something you said.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, you said your very expensive equipment being ruined by cigarette smoke. Does it have a bad effect other than just making it stink?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
I think there
What
are oils in the smoke and stuff, aren't there?
The verdict is out on that because people say, I was at this session and, the people were smoking and I didn't want them smoking around my microphones. Is it bad for my microphones? And some smart Alex will say, look at the pictures of the Beatles recording. They're all smoking around their, multi-$1,000 microphones.
Yeah, then listen to the Beatles recordings is how I would answer that.
It's a smoke. It's a residue. It's set somewhere.
I never ever really thought about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it can't be good.
Chemicals and stuff in it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I
just never thought about it before.
When the smoke is getting in and just, sitting on this solder, it's got to affect it.
Yeah, when you think what it does, what it does to your clothing, if you're... if you're around somebody,
especially a microphone that's just this thin film. If that gets coated with anything,
just like it coats your lungs,
Well, without getting too technical, nitty gritty. You've even said some microphones are, couldn't handle it if like a big wind hit them, or they're sensitive enough that it can destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if somebody was in front of those, the ribbon microphones I'm using now are very sensitive. And if somebody was smoking in front of one of those and, inhaled and went by the microphone, they could break the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I don't like to carry those cases. It's so scary. I like to be in charge of like the pen and the flashlight.
Yeah. Don't drop anything.
When you say, you've mentioned ribbon microphones before in my presence, Dave. And I'm not sure I even know what they look. I imagine like fly strips hanging down from the ceiling.
No, most of them are a little bit bigger than regular microphones. They just look like old microphones.
They're kind of the round, elongated head.
So they look like a microphone, but they're not like
a
strip of paper hanging from the ceiling.
No, they're not.
There's no bow microphone. They're
not like the modern, vocal mic look that people grab off the stand and start running around the stand. They usually look like they have two sides, and that's because they do. They're called the figure 8 pattern that all ribbon microphones record at.
And they're less for amplification, more for recording.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yes. Although over the years they have a couple companies have been making some slightly more durable ones, and some people are using them live for guitar amps and things like that. You couldn't.
Why would you do that?
Because they sound great.
But even coming through, they don't get all distorted.
No.
Okay. I
well,
something.
Yeah, it's like
I demand more pay from One Room Studio.
How long have these been out? How long is this a new?
No, it's very old. I don't know much of the history of microphones.
I don't either.
But it's an old technology.
So it's just an old technology that is like tried and true in terms of recording.
Well, it's an old technology that probably I'm just making this up, but probably throughout like the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and even early 2000s went by the wayside because they were so delicate. They were too expensive to maintain.
So are they making a comeback, or are you just bringing them back?
They're making a comeback.
Wow.
And they're making a comeback in a big way with me. Because olives.
Olives?
I love them. I love them.
Yeah. I'll eat olives.
Oh, several cases.
Yeah, well, if they're good.
Matter of fact...
Yes.
The last Triskelion at the monastery. Those were 2 ribbons.
That's right.
Those are just those 2 microphones, yeah.
I remember when some lady came and was talking to somebody ahead of time when they were getting too close to the mics, and I remember you going
sweating. They get my
you said,
sweater on.
This could be trouble. I think that's actually in the podcast. You say, no, what's going on here? Oh boy, am I going to have to get up? Am I going to have to? And they were straying a little too close to the microphones, and you really, I could see your spidey sense going off. You're like, whoa! Get away!
Touch it.
Yeah, you had to cover the podcast again.
I don't think you actually had to get up. I think you were just worried you would have to get up. I don't think they actually ever touched them. But
I remember that podcast. I was just worried that Marge was going to scold us later.
This is an ongoing,
frightened. Frightened of my scolding.
Well, you are a school teacher.
Oh, yeah, it must just be that.
The school marm.
School marm. I think I just have it. I must have it naturally, or I don't even know I'm
just
doing it.
Just to recall the listeners, if you have not heard that monastery recording, I think that might have been like episode 16 or something.
Oh, that early.
Yeah, it was a really early one. And we were doing it in the monastery while Marge's group, Triskelion,
was attempting to perform.
Yeah.
No, they were rehearsing. We were just rehearsing.
We were rehearsing, yeah.
So, Daver and Wendy and I were like bad little kids in church talking. And really, with the acoustics in there, Marge said she was...
I couldn't hear it.
She couldn't even hear us talking.
Were saying.
But, we could hear them singing. And then, at some point, Daver swears he saw Marge look over at us with a stern look.
There was a couple times.
I didn't see that. Paranoid.
You're just lying. But yeah, that monastery, that space has real tricky, because if let's say, somebody's giving the homily or whatever, and you are close to the center aisle, and you're listening, or you're maybe at a slight angle from the speaker, he's speaking into the microphone and whatnot, you hear him perfectly. If you get over, like at a right angle, if he's like there and you were like over there, the speech is absolutely unintelligible. It's got a very odd acoustic, and I think when you go farther back to it, it's okay, but if you get off to the side at all, the sound is just completely distorted. You can't hear anything.
We do not live in a monastery. It's considerably smaller, but I feel that way in our house. Like, there's times I can't hear something from the very next room, but I'll hear it coming all the way around from somewhere else.
Well,
I swear he's in a different room.
Yeah, this house can be like that, too. There are certain houses, if you're in that room, you cannot hear, like, somebody knock at the door. There's odd little pockets where...
Oh, yeah, I mean, and really, if I'm in the bathroom or the pool room in this undisclosed location, and Marge is in the bedroom, and I can yell and yell.
Yeah.
Oh!
It
doesn't hear me at all.
I didn't hear you.
It's a good thing I'm not being murdered.
Speaking of yelling in
Yes.
the other room,
Yes.
what are you laughing about?
Because I think you're going to tell the story of your dad.
Well, I don't know this one. I was going somewhere else.
Let's hear both these stories.
Okay, your mom tells a story. Your dad was moving something, or you gotta help me out here. Doing something upstairs.
Oh, and something fell on him.
Yeah, it actually was an accident.
Yeah.
And he was yelling, and
nobody came up to help him. And
he must have wriggled free
eventually
or
got free, and Jesus Christ, I could have died up there. Nobody.
It was the acoustics, dear.
Yeah.
So what was the other story you were about to tell?
The other story was going to be a story that you were going to tell.
What?
If it's possible.
All right.
It involved a telephone and your Uncle Jimmy.
Oh.
Because Marge mentioning being in that room and not being able to hear a knock at the door reminded me of the end of that story.
Yeah,
so we're talking about my Uncle Jimmy's cantankerousness and crabbiness. And one time my sister Mary called him on the phone, I think just to check on him. And it was one of these confusing things where he went to go do something, and I think this is how it went. He kind of forgot he'd been on the phone with her, but she couldn't tell what happened. She didn't know if he forgot.
Like he set down the phone and didn't come back.
He set down the phone,
something.
yeah, like he thought, she thought maybe he said goodbye but didn't hang the phone up right or something. But he just didn't come back on the line, and she couldn't hear. She could hear the TV on, but she couldn't hear him. And so she kept going, Uncle Jim, Uncle Jim, 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 pick up the phone, Jim. And she just kept doing this over and over again, nothing. She thought, oh dear, because the first thing you think of, he's very old. Maybe he had an attack of something, So she didn't want to do it, but she called because she lived up in McHenry, so she had to call the Joliet police. She gives them, she explains the thing. They're very nice. She gives him Uncle Jim's address. She's waiting and waiting. Finally, she hears, bum bum bum. Hello in there. This is Joliet Police Department.
Through the phone, she's listening on the phone.
She's listening. Yeah, she can hear this on the phone, and she hears Jim all of a sudden go, "What the hell?" He said, "The police." And he opens the door, and she can hear the cop trying to real nicely explain, "Now your niece is on the line, and you didn't." He goes, "What the hell? What? My niece is on the line. What?" And then instead of going over the phone, picking it up like if it was just slightly off the hook or whatever he had done, she just hears him hang the phone up. He doesn't go, "Hello, Mary, are you there?" Nothing like that. Nothing reasonable like that. He didn't know what was going on. He was angry that they're making him do this. And then she called him, and then the police called Mary back and said, "Oh, he's okay. The phone was off the hook," and he just got mad. And so she called him back later that night and says, "Uncle Jim, did you leave the phone up there?" He says, "Oh, what the hell was going on with that? You got the police came over here? What was going on?" So she's just nothing.
Never mind.
Just let it drop. Just let it drop. I mean, at a certain point, you just cut your losses with him. And Jimmy, if somehow you hear this podcast, I'm sorry. You can. I don't know what you do. Take your baseball back. I did tell that story on the podcast. That's how we let off.
That was last week, I think.
Was that last week we were talking about that? Yeah, I guess
Seems
so.
like just moments ago.
Yeah, just like it was yesterday or sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And I did explain the torture game, right? Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, we talked about
Tortured us with
Tortured you with the explanation of the torture game. But that sounds horrible, too. Now that I think about it, it's like you grew up in a family where you like to torture each other. It's
It was just
fun.
Just fun. Just to
Like,
you a lot worse.
That's right. Yeah, we were a very loving family, actually. But
do we have time for
we got like
a my dad story?
Oh yeah, we have like 3 minutes.
My dad, who was one of the most accident-prone people in the world,
Oh, I thought
was
of
always
this. Yeah.
hitting himself on the head with hammers and things like that. When he would then he would get mad. He was kind of like Bill's Uncle Jim. He would just get mad, and he'd be hammering a nail in, and it wouldn't go in, and he'd go, "God damn it!" and he'd hit it real hard. The hammer would bounce back and hit him on the head. Things like that were always happening to my dad, usually because he would lose his temper. But we're talking about, when you said about your dad getting something falling on him, and he was able to free himself, and because nobody could hear him yelling. When I was a baby, my dad got it in his head. We lived in that house across the street then, right across there. When I was a little baby,
Undisclosed street.
Undisclosed street. So my mom was home. My dad was home. He had it in his head that he was going to melt some wax, some paraffin, for what I really
that was
I do not know
How was he going to do that?
what he was going to do with the paraffin. But he